I heard that Chris's junior schoolmate was dying. Her only wish was to marry him. The moment he said yes, I sent a message to the system, help me leave this world. Chris had urged me twice to finalize the divorce, but I never showed up at the registry. Not until the day I lay on the operating table, a terminal patient, his patient. When he saw me, his expression crumbled into shock and despair. How could it be you? What shattered him even more was realizing that, according to the system's arrangement, I would die under his scalpel, leaving him to live the rest of his life consumed by guilt. Chris was a surgeon, known as the hospital's golden hand. Always busy, so busy that the divorce was reduced to a WeChat message, let's get the divorce over with when you have time. Heather's emotionally unstable. She can't wait any longer. I sat at a table full of untouched food, the cream on the cake slowly melting, just like our relationship. From school uniforms to a wedding gown, over a decade together, and it all unraveled in a single night. I called him several times. He didn't pick up until the fourth try. His voice was calm and indifferent. What is it? I was busy. I instinctively wanted to apologize, assuming he was in surgery. Doctors, after all, were supposed to be responsible for their patients. But then, a playful female voice chimed in on the other end, all my clothes are off. Come quickly. My blood rushed straight to my head. Chris, we're still married. He replied casually, you misunderstood. I was helping Heather bathe her dog. I shut my eyes and dug my nails into my palm. Chris, once we're divorced, I'll disappear. That was the system's original setting, unchangeable by anyone. He said nothing. I heard movement on the other end, as if he had gone somewhere more private. Then his voice lowered. Michelle, I've explained this so many times. It's just a ceremony. Once I fulfill her wish, we'll get married again. Why do you always use disappearing to threaten me? Whenever he called me by my full name, it meant he was angry. When I didn't respond, his breathing grew heavy, he hated it when I went silent. Michelle, be rational. I let out a cold laugh. You're spending the night at Heather's and telling me to be rational. Don't you think that's ridiculous? Legally, he was still my husband. There was a long sigh on the other end of the line. Then, cold and precise words pierced through my heart. Michelle, get the divorce done Friday morning. I took a spoonful of the cream cake. A bitter taste spread across my tongue. Funny, isn't it? He remembered to help Heather bathe her dog, but forgot today was my birthday. Maybe his heart had already left, and his memories followed. System, can you sing a birthday song? I can't. I only know funeral chants. I chuckled. Forget it, then. Save it for the day I die. Help me leave this world. Once I leave here, I'll return to my original world. I may not have a healthy body there, but I have loving family and friends. I miss the rice noodle rolls downstairs, the beef soup from the old market street. And most of all, Mom's warm clay pot porridge. Here, I'm the only one doing the cooking, for Chris. Because he's a surgeon, and his hands are vital for his work. But when I saw Heather's social media post, I broke down. Those slender hands I'd protected for years, he was using them to peel shrimp for her, gently and patiently. The caption read, golden hands, and he's only ever peeled shrimp for me. Everything I had done suddenly felt like a joke. Host, do you want to give it one more try? No, I said. My heart was already dead. From the moment he decided on divorce, I knew the mission was doomed. Whether I died sooner or later didn't matter anymore, might as well make it quick. The system sighed, if you leave voluntarily, it'll be a little painful. The good news is, you can choose how to die. I thought for a moment, then gave a faint smile. Chris never believed I'd really disappear. Then let me die under the hands of the so-called golden surgeon. I imagined his expression would be quite something. That Friday, I didn't make it to the civil office. Once the detachment protocol began, my body rapidly deteriorated. My immune system collapsed. I came down with a fever. My lips were dry and cracked. I instinctively called out, Chris. Water. In the past, whenever he was home, I could always count on a perfectly warm glass of water. I liked how he pampered me in the little things. I had grown used to it. But then I opened my eyes and remembered, he had already moved out. The day he agreed to marry Heather. She's my mentor's daughter, he had said. Out of respect, I have to take care of her. She's dying. It's just a wedding ceremony, can't you be more understanding? I had stared at him in stunned silence. If it's just a formality, I asked, why bother with the divorce certificate? He looked down. His pale, refined face turned icy. We can't let her be the other woman, can we? Right. Since we weren't divorced, she'd technically be a mistress. Turns out he was thorough even in his performative righteousness. I looked at him blankly. Chris, if we divorce, I'll never remarry you. He froze for a second, then dropped his suitcase and grabbed my arm tightly. What are you saying? If not me, then who? You said it yourself, you're an orphan in this world. You have no one but me. Maybe he held me too tightly, my eyes welled with tears. I clenched my fists and hit him. Let go, you bastard. You were the one who didn't want me first. But he pulled me into his arms, and my tears soaked the collar of his white shirt. Michelle, don't cry. Please don't cry, it hurts me to see you like this. How could I ever not want you? He awkwardly wiped away my tears and kissed me, starting from my forehead all the way to my lips. He told me he was an orphan, that his mentor had taken care of him like a mother, that Heather was just like a little sister. And I believed him. After all, she had a rare terminal illness. Wasn't she about to die? The system told me, if we restored our marriage within 3 months, the mission wouldn't count as a failure. But a week later, I brought him some nourishing soup to the hospital. Passing the outdoor parking lot, I froze. Heather was sitting in the driver's seat with the windows down. Chris stood beside the car, hands in his lab coat pockets, tall and poised. And in the next second, he leaned in and kissed the girl he had just called his sister. It felt like a bucket of ice water had been dumped over my head. I stared numbly as he reached out with his familiar, slender fingers and gently tousled her hair. Be good. Go home and get some rest. She said something coy, then put on her sunglasses and drove away. It was all so familiar, he had done these things for me once, too. He was going to fulfill her wish of marriage. And at that moment, a chilling thought crept into my mind, was it really just sympathy and responsibility? Maybe. His heart had long drifted away. Just far enough that he could rationalize his betrayal without technically breaking our vows. No wonder he was so eager to get the divorce certificate. To marry her. That day, I threw the nourishing soup into the trash can. And I threw in my heart too, the one that had once loved him without holding anything back. Still feverish and disoriented, I was jolted awake by the phone ringing again and again. I fumbled for it and finally answered. Chris's annoyed voice came through the speaker. Do you have any sense of time? I've been waiting for half an hour. Oh. I had completely forgotten about the divorce appointment. My fever had muddled my mind. I've got a fever, I said weakly. Can we reschedule? I could barely move, how was I supposed to get out of bed? Chris chuckled on the other end. Did you forget I'm a doctor? With your ironclad constitution, how could you possibly have a fever? You're 28, not some delicate little girl like Heather. Don't throw a tantrum. I actually laughed, out of disbelief. Maybe you didn't know, but that little girl of yours? She's only 2 years younger than me. He used to call me his little girl too. Maybe now he was just tired of me. It didn't matter anymore. I had no expectations left. For the second time, I stood him up for the divorce. But on my way out the door, something unexpected happened. At the intersection, a tiny boy, no more than 2, wearing a cartoon t-shirt suddenly ran out into the road, calling for his mom. A speeding car turned the corner, completely out of control. I didn't have time to think. I lunged forward and shoved the boy toward safety. There was a loud crash. My body felt like it had shattered on impact. The driver never slowed down. They just slammed the gas and sped off. I turned my head, dazed. The license plate. It looked familiar. In a flash, I remembered Heather's car in the hospital parking lot. It was her. The boy was scooped up by his terrified family, wailing in panic. Auntie's hurt. I couldn't feel anything except pain, my organs felt like they'd been crushed. But oddly, there was no blood. System, I asked faintly, am I dying? This wasn't how I had planned it. A little regret lingered. But if I could save that little boy, I felt no real regret. The system paused for a few seconds, then responded flatly, congratulations. Before the programmed death date, the host cannot die. The symptoms from the crash will fully manifest only on the day of your detachment. Then, in a strangely shy tone, it added, I arranged this perk for you. Strangely, I found the system kind of cute. I let out a faint smile. Great. Let Chris see what his new wife did to me. The boy's parents and grandmother gathered around me, eyes red with emotion. You saved our child. You saved our entire family. They nearly knelt to thank me. I kept insisting I was fine, but they were determined and loaded me into their car to take me to the hospital. How can you be fine, they said. The bumper caved in. Is a person tougher than a car? With no other choice, I messaged Chris in advance. I was in a car accident. Let's pick another time. What I didn't expect was that they brought me to the very hospital where Chris worked. I want to see her reports, said a familiar voice from above. Chris rushed in like the wind, forehead glistening with sweat. He must have run all the way back. Another doctor patted his shoulder. Dr. Hall, don't worry. Everything's fine. Per system protocol, before the appointed death date, no machine could detect what was truly happening inside me. Chris carefully examined every page of the report. When he finally looked up, there was a sharp glint in his eyes. No external or internal injuries. What kind of car accident is that? Michelle, what are you trying to pull, missing 2 appointments like this? I folded my hands calmly. It was a car accident. Oh, and your new wife was the driver. Hit and run. Without thinking, he frowned and snapped, impossible. Heather is too innocent. She wouldn't do something like that. Oh? So I'm not innocent, and I'm lying then? We both fell silent. A flicker of discomfort flashed through his eyes. He'd realized it too, he trusted Heather more than he trusted me. In my mind, I asked the system, will she be caught? The system replied firmly, yes. This world is still a place governed by law. Good. Then I could rest easy. Let the law judge just how innocent she really was. Had it not been for the system protecting me, that crash would have killed me on the spot. She was a criminal, plain and simple. I checked the time on my watch. Chris, let's go. We need to get to the registry office. I don't have much time left. Hands in his pockets, he responded flatly, what do you mean you don't have time? I'm dying. 3 days from now. At 4 p.m. I once asked the system, is there anything special about that time? 10 years ago, at exactly 4 p.m. you two met. Ah. A beginning, and now an end. Chris cast a blank look out the window, his tone vaguely impatient. Michelle, you should go see a psychiatrist. I actually laughed aloud. Chris, the one who's sick is you. You want everything, how selfish. I turned to leave, but he grabbed my wrist. Haven't been eating properly? You've lost weight. None of your business. Eat something first, Michelle. I was about to refuse, when his phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. It was Heather. He instinctively let go of my hand. On the other end of the line, she was crying, saying she had a nightmare and felt scared. Chris spoke to her gently, reassuring her with a few soft words. Then he glanced back at me and said, I'll be back soon. As he ended the call, I caught a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. Michelle, go eat something first. I sneered inwardly. A nightmare? Or maybe it was just her guilty conscience, afraid after running someone over. How perfect. Because of her, Chris missed what could have been our last meal together. I wondered, would he ever regret it? The countdown to death had begun. I lay on the cold surgical table. Waves of pain surged through me, as if my organs were being twisted and shredded. It didn't matter. Just a little longer. Soon, I'd be home again, drinking the porridge my mom always made. Chris's last words still echoed in my ears, his voice full of violence and irritation. Michelle, don't think I have no temper. Heather is dying. Can't you show some damn compassion? That was because I had missed our 3rd divorce appointment. But I'd told him already, I was dying. He just didn't believe me. 10 minutes later, Chris entered the OR in full surgical scrubs, face emotionless. He wasn't supposed to be the operating surgeon for this case. But the system had arranged it, no matter who was initially assigned, it would end up being him. System, what's my terminal illness? Tumor removal. One of Chris's signature specialties. Why did the system sound almost smug? The anesthesia had already been administered. Chris was ready. One of the assistants leaned in and whispered, Dr. Hall, are you sure you're okay? They knew who I was. Privately, they had even admired him. Dr. Hall is truly composed, someone had once said. To operate on your own wife, that's some iron will. But Chris had no idea. The patient lying beneath the surgical drape was the same woman he had scolded in fury just hours ago. He took the scalpel handed to him, steady and practiced, and made a 16-centimeter incision across my abdomen. Compared to the many surgeries Chris had performed before, this tumor resection wasn't particularly special. Even if it failed, it would be considered within reason. After all, it was a high-difficulty procedure with a notoriously low success rate. But thanks to his years of experience, everything was still under his control. That is, until the word accident, something humans can never fully predict, suddenly took shape. Chris accidentally noticed a faint pink scar near the incision. His hand froze midair. The assistants were visibly surprised. It was rare to see Dr. Hall pause during a procedure, especially when the patient's body was already open. Chris looked dazed. Only I knew why. That scar was something Chris knew all too well. On countless nights of intimacy, he had caressed it, kissed it. Michelle, this scar is yours, but it's my lifetime's mark. That scar was left from the time I shielded him from a knife. Back when he was still in residency, I used to bring him meals. One day, a surgery had failed, and the patient lost control, waving a fruit knife in a frenzy. Chris was still just a rookie doctor back then. It wasn't even his responsibility. He was helping a collapsed patient when the knife swung straight toward his abdomen. Watch out! I shouted as I shoved him aside. The blade stabbed into my lower abdomen instead. Chris immediately pressed on the wound with both hands. Blood seeped through his fingers and drenched them. His face went ghostly pale as he carried me in his arms, stumbling all the way to the emergency room. It wasn't until my wound was stabilized that the emptiness in his eyes regained a flicker of life. Red-eyed, he buried his face in the crook of my neck. "Michelle, seeing you bleed hurts more than dying myself." I smiled faintly and patted his back. "Then, will you treat me better from now on?" He kissed the tip of my ear. "I'd give you my life if you wanted it." That night, he held me tightly, carefully avoiding my wound, and said solemnly, "Michelle, you're too kind. Please think about yourself a little more next time, okay?" He was the one who once told me to take care of myself. And now, he's the one telling me to be more understanding, because Heather is supposedly pure and innocent. An assistant gently reminded him, "Dr. Hall, is something wrong?" Chris didn't answer. He quickly took 2 steps forward and suddenly yanked away the surgical drape from my face. His pupils shrank, and his face was filled with horror and despair. "How could it be you?" But I couldn't answer him. The anesthesia had taken full effect. My eyelids were heavy, my complexion pale, a sheen of cold sweat on my forehead. We were at the final stage of the separation procedure. It was painful, excruciating, even, but it would be over soon. Chris's Adam's apple bobbed several times, and his voice trembled uncontrollably. "Michelle, you can't die. I won't let anything happen to you." He reached out as if to touch me, but withdrew his hand, fearing bacterial infection. The assistants glanced at one another, puzzled. Did Dr. Hall not realize the patient beneath the scalpel was his own wife? Still, their professionalism pulled them back to focus. The room returned to silence, except for the rhythm of the instruments and machines. The system whispered coolly in my mind, "This must be the most tormenting surgery Chris has ever performed." After all, the success rate was only 5%. Who wouldn't be nervous? Chris picked up the scalpel again. His fingers trembled slightly. But with incredible self-control, he steadied his hand, backed by years of surgical mastery. The operation resumed in order. "Continue with the anesthesia. The tumor has begun to spread. Some tissue is detached. There's major hemorrhaging. Perform vascular embolization. Continue with the dissection. Remove the affected tissues." Chris truly lived up to his title, youngest and most prestigious surgeon in the hospital. As he had promised, everything was still under his control. Then came his assistant's barely contained excitement. "It's a success." They murmured softly in celebration. But I wasn't surprised at all. Of course it was a success, for now. Because my detachment time hadn't arrived yet. There were still 2 hours left. According to protocol, I was moved to the observation room for 1 hour. All vital signs appeared stable. Chris regained his usual composure and professionalism. Now, the room was silent, just the 2 of us. Other than our brief encounter at the ER after the car crash, we hadn't spent more than an hour alone in a very long time. He leaned toward me and whispered, "I never imagined these hands would one day operate on Michelle." Thanks to the system, the anesthesia wore off quickly. I opened my eyes and shot back with a trace of sarcasm. I never imagined these same hands would one day be used to peel shrimp for someone else. Just like Chris, I was an orphan in this world. We had both worked hard, scraping by to pay for our tuition. I still remember the winter after graduation, so poor we couldn't afford a washing machine. Southern winters were cold and damp, and every time I did laundry, my fingers turned beet red from the chill. But I never once let him put his hands in the water. "These hands aren't meant for chores," I'd told him. "They're meant to hold scalpels. To save lives. To protect families." He had chuckled. "Michelle, do you have a filter when it comes to doctors?" "I do. In my original world, a doctor had saved my life too." "Well then, I won't let down your faith in me." The room fell silent, so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Chris seemed stunned by my words. It took him a long time before he let out a soft sigh. "Michelle? Heather is dying. Can't you just let it go?" I let out a small laugh. "I'm dying too. Why can't I be allowed to care?" Chris's eyes dimmed instantly. "You won't die. Don't you trust my skill?" Maybe it finally dawned on him that I was a patient now, too. His voice softened. "When did this illness start?" "The day you told me you wanted a divorce, and said you didn't believe I'd disappear." He was stunned again. Fumbling for another topic, he said, "I know you care about appearances." I stitched the incision carefully. "The scar will be minimal." I didn't respond. The silence between us grew heavy, so heavy it made him uncomfortable. Just as he was about to speak again, a young nurse entered the room. "Dr. Hall, your phone has been ringing non-stop." "Michelle, let me take this call." A while later, he returned, expression slightly strained. "Michelle, something urgent came up. I have to step out for a bit. I'll have a nurse look after you." Of course I knew where he was going. His original plan was to finalize the divorce with me in the morning, and then hold a wedding with Heather on the lawn in the afternoon. Dr. Hall really was a master of time management. Efficient, as ever. Chris, I only have less than 2 hours left in this world. Are you sure you don't want to say goodbye? Truthfully, I didn't care to spend more time with him either. But if he had stayed, even briefly, it would have been a final gesture of sincerity, a shred of respect for our years together. And I might have, in return, offered him a sliver of peace. A little less guilt to carry. But he chose not to. Chris stood up. Even after a grueling 3-hour surgery, he still looked sharp and poised, full of energy. The panic he'd shown when he discovered the patient was me had completely vanished. Michelle, he said coolly, once you've recovered, I'll personally schedule an appointment for you with the psych department. That calm, commanding tone, like there was no room for discussion. Honestly, I hated it. I let out a cold laugh. Dr. Hall, I hope you won't regret this. Chris's expression remained composed, as if I were just throwing a childish tantrum. He glanced at me and smiled faintly. I won't. Michelle, what you need now is proper rest. And with that, he walked out the door. The phone in his pocket had already buzzed multiple times. By now, his wedding venue was probably filled with guests. Heather must be getting impatient. But I was at peace now. Chris, this was your choice. After he left, the system sighed quietly in my mind. He missed his final chance. I was surprised. Did the system just sound regretful? You're a kind girl, host, it said softly. I selfishly gave you one more chance, hoping you might live a little longer in this world. If he had chosen you today, the success of your surgery would have been real. I chuckled. System, did you forget? Even if he'd stayed, I still wouldn't have made it. Heather already killed me. The system paused in silence. Yes. I know. Host, do you want to know why Heather was speeding that day? She was rushing to the airport. To pick up Chris. Of course. That was the day Chris returned from his business trip. She had to pick him up quickly, because he was in a hurry to divorce me. Karma really is something. I let out a long sigh. Even if I hadn't been hit, even if the surgery had succeeded, I still wouldn't want him anymore. You don't love him anymore? The system asked. It had witnessed our entire 10-year relationship. No, I said quietly. Why? You're the system. Shouldn't you know? Ahem, the system isn't all-knowing, you know. We occasionally miss a few details. I smiled. Heather's family doesn't have a dog. Chris told me that a long time ago. His mentor and that so-called junior were both severely allergic to animal fur. How could someone allergic to fur possibly own a dog? The system froze for a few moments. So, that night, there couldn't have been any dog to bathe? Exactly. That voice on the phone, all my clothes are off. Come quickly. Was all the proof I needed. He hadn't just emotionally strayed, his body had followed. And he still lied to me. Calmly. Effortlessly. System, he's filthy. I can't want him anymore. The system, uncharacteristically, muttered a curse. Damn. That scumbag better drown in guilt. Suddenly, chaos broke out. Something's wrong. The patient is hemorrhaging, tissue infection. Dr. Hall's surgery has led to severe postoperative complications. Heart has stopped. Get the ECMO ready, start cardiopulmonary bypass. How did the patient's organs rupture? Liver, spleen, heart, lungs. But in truth, I had already completed the detachment. My soul floated above the operating table, watching my life slowly slip away. Why isn't Dr. Hall answering his phone? One call connected, but it was hung up. I asked the system, do you know who hung up? Oh ho, this is getting good. It was Heather. The system practically sounded like it was watching a drama. Come on, host, I'll take you to the wedding. This system, honestly, was getting kind of cute. Before leaving, I glanced back at my body on the operating table. The injuries from the crash had finally appeared in full. So this is what they looked like? My entire body was shattered, arm and left leg twisted at grotesque angles. Likely broken in multiple places. Poor thing. But at least I pushed that little boy to safety. He was so cute. So innocent. I was glad he was okay. You know, other people's weddings are kind of fun to watch. Mountains of flowers. Balloons floating in all colors. It looked like happiness. Only, it wasn't theirs to begin with. It was stolen. System, the cake on that long table looks good. Host, you seem a little cheerful. Need I remind you? This is your husband's wedding. I wrinkled my nose. That's because I'm about to go home. Of course I'm happy. As for Chris, he no longer had any power over my emotions. When I first discovered his betrayal, I had felt crushed. Resentful. I'd even doubted myself. My hair had fallen out in handfuls each night. I'd close my eyes and see images looping in my head, his fingers intertwined with hers, the two of them kissing, even curled up together in bed. The world I once protected had collapsed. But later, I realized, punishing myself for a man who stopped loving me was pure foolishness. What I needed to do was find my way back into the light. Into life. Host, look. The scumbag. Chris appeared at the edge of the lawn, dressed in a black tuxedo. Handsome, dignified. The bride, too, was beautiful, elegantly made up, composed. Not a trace of guilt on her face, even though she had killed someone just 3 days ago. I slowly floated over to Chris and heard him whisper to Heather, "Where's my phone?" Heather's eyes dodged his. "In the dressing room. I tucked it away for you." It was true, tuxedos didn't look great with bulky phones. "Any calls?" "There was one, I think." Heather hesitated. "Do you want me to go get it?" "But, the ceremony is about to start." Chris paused. "No. It's fine." His gaze turned forward again, calm and collected. I wondered, did he remember our wedding? When we were too poor to afford anything but silver bands. And yet we were so happy. "Michelle, do you regret marrying a broke guy like me?" "Of course not. Dr. Hall is a rising star." And he was. Later, he could afford the biggest diamond ring in the world. But I never felt the joy I had back then. "Michelle, my junior is dying. Can I fulfill one wish of hers?" "She's only 26. It's so tragic." "Go ahead, Chris." "Her wish is to marry me." I froze. "Chris, that's not a reasonable wish." "But she's dying." "Even if she is, that doesn't give her the right to take someone else's husband. To take someone else's love. Chris, her wish is not only unreasonable, it's immoral." That day, he stood on the balcony, smoking for a long time. Then he flicked the ash and said, "Michelle, you've changed. You're not as kind as you used to be." What he left me with was silence. "Chris, have you forgotten? I'm most afraid of being alone." I sat in the empty living room, turning on every single light. But something still felt missing. Eventually, I curled up into a ball, face buried in my arms. It wasn't me who changed, Chris. It was you. When he was with Heather, I called him. "Chris, my stomach hurts. Chris, it really hurts." That day, he was with Heather, sitting atop the city's tallest Ferris wheel. It was said that a kiss at the very top symbolized eternal love. I didn't actually have a stomachache. I stood at the base of the Ferris wheel, watching the two of them sitting intimately together. It wasn't my stomach, it was my heart that hurt. Chris knew my body well. Of course he knew I was lying. His voice on the phone was detached and cold. "Michelle, I'm a surgeon, not a gastroenterologist." In that moment, the pain felt unbearable. When someone can no longer tolerate your occasional pettiness, it probably means they no longer love you. Love and indifference have always been worlds apart. "System," I said, "are they almost at the ring exchange part? That diamond ring is blinding. Must have cost a fortune." The system nearly burst out laughing. "Host, shouldn't you be more concerned about when the police will arrive?" "What's the rush?" I replied lightly. "Let them enjoy their happiness a little longer. That way, when the truth hits, it'll hurt more." Heather looked up at Chris with a shy smile. "Senior, I've liked you for a long time. And today, my wish finally came true." Chris's expression faltered. His eyes drifted downward, a trace of distraction in his gaze. Perhaps he was remembering the day we got married. He had once said the exact same words to me, "Michelle, marrying you, this wish finally came true." How ironic. Today, he abandoned me on a hospital bed to fulfill someone else's wish. He had probably just removed our wedding ring. A faint indentation still lingered on his ring finger. As for me, I had thrown away the ring I once cherished. The day he agreed to marry Heather, I tossed it into the trash. I never wanted it again. Now, those elegant fingers of his were gently holding the diamond ring, about to slip it onto Heather's hand. Just then, several uniformed police officers entered through the flower-covered arch. The system sounded almost gleeful. "Oh ho, showtime. Want me to get you some sunflower seeds while we watch?" Ahem. "Host, you forget, I'm on duty right now." I almost laughed out loud. "Heather," one officer said, "you've been reported for a hit and run." Heather's lips trembled violently. Like a drowning person, she clutched tightly at Chris's arm. I didn't do anything." The officer, used to lies, maintained a professional tone. "Surveillance shows that on the 11th of this month, at 2:10 p.m. you were driving a car, license plate XXX, on Needham Street. You were speeding, hit a young woman, and fled the scene." At that point, I noticed Chris's fingers twitch. He was smart. He could guess. The person Heather had rushed to pick up that day was him. Chris's expression turned grim. He yanked his arm away and stepped back. He glared at Heather. "You switched cars to pick me up that day, because the first one hit someone." Heather trembled uncontrollably. Chris grabbed her by the throat, fury overtaking him. "Did you hit Michelle?" Heather stammered incoherently. It hurts." "Let go." I don't know. It can't be. There were no cameras. The police calmly corrected her. The camera was newly installed, the day before. Heather staggered slightly, as if hit by a sudden gust of wind. Miss, the officer continued, you are also under investigation for purchasing a forged medical record. Please cooperate with our inquiry. At that, Heather turned pale as ash. She didn't even have the strength to argue. She collapsed into a heap and was taken away by the police. What awaited her would be the full weight of the law. The wedding guests began murmuring, furious and indignant. How embarrassing, getting arrested at your own wedding. She always seemed sweet and innocent. But hitting someone and fleeing? That's stone cold. She faked an illness? Bought a fake record just to pretend she was dying? That's disgusting. Isn't the groom supposed to be some top doctor? And he didn't notice anything? Chris must have heard all of it. At that moment, it looked like someone had slapped him, hard. Host, the system said, did Chris really not know? I smiled faintly. Maybe, he just didn't want to know. He wanted to be the dragon-slaying knight saving a princess. What he didn't realize was, he was the dragon. The system seethed. TCH. What a rare breed of trash man. Chris retrieved his phone from the dressing room, but the screen was black. Dead battery. Without a word, he turned and sprinted toward the parking lot. He was in such a rush, he even tripped halfway there. Slamming on the accelerator, he sped off toward the hospital. Host, the system noted, he just ran several red lights. Let's hope he loses his license then. He bit his lip, not even bothering to change out of his groom's tux. He stormed into the hospital. Where's Michelle? Where is she? The nurses were startled by his wild appearance. Dr. Hall, there's no Michelle here. What do you mean there's no Michelle? Did you even check properly? Luckily, his assistant stopped him in time. Chris, there really is no Michelle. Chris, normally so calm and composed at work, now looked completely unhinged. Damn it, where did she go? Your wife, she's in the morgue. Chris swayed, like someone had pulled the ground out from under him. He grabbed his assistant by the collar. No, she was just fine. The surgery went well. What are you talking about? On the way to the morgue, the assistant spoke softly. With every word, Chris's face grew paler. Her internal organs, they looked like they'd been crushed by massive impact. Like she was in a very bad car accident. Chris could only mutter to himself, no, the surgery went fine, it was successful. The assistant had to tell him the truth. Chris, the stitching you did, it all split open. Her intestines, they spilled out. Chris's legs felt like they were filled with lead. He could barely walk. And the tumor, it had already spread. It had invaded surrounding tissue. The words hit him like a sledgehammer. That meant only one thing. His surgery had failed. The golden surgeon had finally failed. He had performed countless surgeries in his career. Yet the one that failed was his own wife's. It was a devastating blow to his confidence. Chris's Adam's apple bobbed several times. When did she pass? 1 hour after you left the hospital. And where had he been at that time? Attending a wedding. His wedding. To Heather. While the room bloomed with flowers and balloons, while joy filled the air. His wife was taking her final breaths. Chris hesitated multiple times before lifting the white cloth. His hands trembled as if he had Parkinson's. Come on, lift it already. Once you do, the system's process ends, and I can go home for mom's porridge. Chris finally shut his eyes tight, then pulled off the sheet in one motion. I saw my own body, too. TSK. The face still looks okay, but the rest, completely shattered. The system sighed beside me. Chris stared at my body quietly at first. Then, he gently stroked my face as if I could still feel it. Finally, he brought my cold, lifeless hand to his lips. Michelle, get up. Come on, let's go home. Let's not get divorced anymore, okay? Never again. The room remained silent. No one answered him. His assistant stood awkwardly nearby, helpless. Chris refused to let go of my body, growing more and more frantic. Michelle. Answer me, damn it. Please, get up. Let's go home, okay? I'm begging you. Michelle, I'm really begging you. Tears streamed down his face, landing on my lifeless neck. I didn't like that. System, I said. Can you tell him not to get me dirty? Host, it's almost over. Just bear it a little longer. How much longer? At midnight tonight, you can return to your original world. Fine. A few more hours of endurance. The body couldn't be taken home. The hospital director persuaded Chris to leave. It wasn't appropriate for a famous surgeon to sit in a morgue, going mad. At the very least, you should handle her funeral, right? Chris kissed my forehead several times. I frowned, watching him. Even the system muttered under its breath, idiot. After persistent urging from his colleagues, Chris numbly walked out of the morgue. He asked his assistant in a feigned calm voice. Did Michelle say anything before she passed? She did. Chris's eyes lit up instantly. She said, she wished you a happy wedding. And, that she never wants to see you again. Chris, are you okay? Chris collapsed heavily to the ground. His knees slammed into the cold floor with a loud thud. He seemed to forget pain even existed. He quickly scrambled to his feet, limping as he rushed away. I have to go home. Michelle said, her stomach hurts. He opened the door to what used to be our home with his keys. Darkness greeted him. Only the glow of lights from other homes outside the window reminded him he was still in this world. He stood there for a while. As if he didn't even know where the living room light switch was. Because whenever he got home, the lights were always on. I'd always be on the couch waiting for him. Michelle, he called out once. Of course, no one replied. Clang. A sound from the bedroom. Chris rushed in. Only to stop in his tracks seconds later, like his soul had been drained. No one was there. Just a picture frame that had fallen to the floor. Bathed in the fluorescent light, he stood frozen. The whole place felt empty, like a lifeless model home no one ever lived in. Host, the system whispered, you did beautifully. I won't leave him a single thing to reminisce over. Indeed. I had thrown away everything that belonged to me, or donated it. The photos and the frames? I only left his half. Even our wedding photo, cut in half. His face crumpled and tossed onto the floor like trash. In the end, he slid down the wall helplessly. He curled up in a ball, just like I did when I first found out about the affair. Unable to believe it, unwilling to accept it. 10 years. Not 10 days. At first, he sobbed quietly. Then came the uncontrollable wailing. Michelle, I was wrong. I was really, really wrong. Please come back. I beg you, please come back. He probably forgot he once said, men don't cry. It's unbecoming. Well, now? Now, he was completely undone. A beam of white light appeared before me. Host, it's time. Goodbye. I knew it was time to go home. Host, will you forget me? Of course not, system. You're way too adorable. Thank you, for being with me through a journey like no other. Goodbye. Goodbye. I'm going home now. Extra chapter, Chris hadn't performed a surgery in a long time. He had developed severe trauma. The moment he stepped into the operating room, he saw Michelle's body lying there. And all he wanted to do was run. Dr. Hall, are you sure you want to proceed with this operation? Yes. Chris nodded to his assistant. Michelle liked that I was a doctor. If I don't perform surgeries, how can I call myself one? He gave a bitter smile, but still changed into his scrubs. Administer anesthesia. A 15-centimeter incision. At first, everything seemed to go smoothly. Until, blood began pouring out. Chris couldn't breathe. Cold sweat dripped down his temples. Images flashed through his mind, Michelle on the table, Michelle in the morgue, the blood, so much blood. The blood from surgeries. The blood from that time years ago when Michelle shielded him from a knife. Chris, will you treat me better from now on? Of course. I'd even give you my life. Then came the memory of Michelle's pleading. Chris, after the divorce, I'll disappear. Michelle, can you stop using disappear to threaten me? Michelle, you need to see a psychiatrist. Michelle, I'll arrange for the psych consult. No, Chris. The one who needs help is you. And she was right. He was the one who was sick. They had worked so hard to build a home together. A warm home. With a small light always on for him to come back to. A place that gave his long lonely heart something to return to. And somehow, he hadn't cherished any of it. Maybe it was because life had been too comfortable for too long, it had grown dull. The daily pressure of surgeries, the burden of reputation, he needed an outlet. And that was when Heather barged in. She admired him, clung to him, wouldn't leave him alone. To him, she was someone utterly different from Michelle, vivid, clingy, fresh. During those countless nights sitting alone in the car, smoking silently, he would think to himself, just once. Just let myself go once. He'd indulge just this once, and then go back to Michelle. He was a doctor. How could he not detect the truth about Heather's condition? She gave him a fake report, and he believed it. Sometimes, ignorance is bliss. He pushed for the divorce himself. Only after severing that bond could he silence the deeply rooted guilt inside him. He couldn't stand being equated with a cheater in Michelle's eyes. But this behavior of his, it was like patching a broken wall with pieces of another, like walking a tightrope every step, until finally, he fell into the abyss and shattered into pieces. That home, the one with Michelle, he could never go back to it. Dr. Hall. Dr. Hall. What is it? Dr. Hall, the patient's bleeding out. It's spreading. It's not good. The tumors invaded the surrounding tissue. Later, his colleagues at the hospital would gossip during lunch breaks. Or treat it as a cautionary tale. That surgery? A complete disaster. The lead surgeon ran out mid-operation. The patient suffered irreversible damage. He got 3 years in prison. After Michelle was gone, Chris was no longer the famed golden surgeon. He couldn't even be a doctor anymore. Michelle's favorite doctor. When Chris was released from prison, it was around the All Souls Day. That bouquet. The lilies, my wife's favorite. Michelle's grave was immaculate, as if someone visited often. The smiling photo on her headstone tugged violently at his heartstrings. Michelle was still so young. But the 3 years he spent in prison aged him like 30. As he reached out to gently touch the photo, a young boy's voice, maybe 6 or 7 years old, called out behind him. Don't touch. You're not allowed to offer anything to my godmother. He was the child Michelle had once saved. Leave. Go away. You married a new wife and killed my godmother. You're not welcome here. Chris gave a bitter smile. He never imagined Michelle would be so ruthless. Not even letting him handle her funeral. She'd entrusted everything to that child's family. Chris left the cemetery, desolate. He looked up at the ashen sky. It looked like it was about to cry. It's raining. Run. Boom. Thunder rolled, and rain poured down like a waterfall. And just like that, he was pulled back to that summer. He was in grad school. Michelle was still an undergrad. Senior. Don't get soaked, I have an umbrella. That was how Michelle first walked, brightly, playfully, into his long lonely world. By the time they got to the dorm, her shoulder was soaked, but he was still dry. He felt ashamed. Because of his height, he hadn't noticed how the little girl had been shielding him the whole way. She smiled, eyes curved into crescent moons. It's fine, senior. I've got a strong body. She had always been so kind. How could he have yelled at her? Told her to be more understanding? The guilt had taken root in his chest, and by now it had grown into thick, tangled vines. Thud. Chris collapsed in the rain. Bright red blood mixed with the downpour, flowing across the ground. The knife Michelle had once blocked for him had returned. Only this time, no one was there to shield him. He recognized the person who stabbed him. The family member of the patient from his last, failed surgery. He deserved it. Running out mid-operation, causing someone to lose their loved one. It was unforgivable. People who betray true hearts rarely meet a good end. Like him, Chris. Michelle, will you come take me away? There was no response. Only the sound of falling rain. After his death, he saw the system again. He begged for a long time before it finally relented and agreed to let him see Michelle. Only because you were once a doctor who saved lives, the system said. It was a calm, quiet evening. Michelle was dozing in a rattan chair at the front door. From inside, her mother called out, Michelle, what should we have for dinner? Clay pot porridge. And crispy baby potatoes. There has to be potatoes. Got it, your favorite. A fresh wave of guilt surged through Chris. He had hated potatoes. And Michelle had given up her favorites for 10 years, just for him. He couldn't touch her. All he could do was watch her stand up with a cheerful grin and run out the door. Hey, you little brat. Stealing lemons from my yard again? Sour enough to kill you. Sis. I'm making lemon tea for you. Want some? Of course. That's when Chris noticed. Only one of Michelle's legs was real. The other wore a prosthetic. Sis, you only have one leg. How are you running so fast? Because I'm an alien. I've got a bionic super leg. She was so optimistic. Exactly like the Michelle he'd known. No wonder she loved to run, loved sports. It had been her way of defying her broken body. And even now, she was full of life. Surrounded by love. She loved others, and others loved her. Her mom, her best friends, the little boy she saved, even the cold system. She loved them all. Everyone. Except him. She didn't love him anymore. She never would again. Chris suddenly realized, with chilling clarity, that even in death, he was utterly alone. News reports in his world broadcast, one celebrated surgeon Dr. Hall found dead outside his late wife's cemetery. No one claimed the body.